G'day fellas and welcome to a casted game of Age of Empires 4. Today we are on Cliffside to watch two of the world's best players face off with two new civilizations. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Dynasties of the East expansion pack. And today we have got two incredibly talented players spawning in on the east side of the map in the color yellow, playing as the Sengoku Daimyo, the Japanese variant. It's Beasty. And on the west side of the map in the color blue, playing as the Macedonian dynasty, the Byzantine variant, it's Numidan. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a casted game. A pleasure to have your company here on Cliffside today. Let's talk about these openings, because we've got something interesting. Now, something that never really crossed my mind before was opening up with a war camp. It makes so much sense, though, because it increases your maximum population. It acts as a house, effectively. It's only 50 wood. Why the hell not? You might as well just do it. It takes a couple seconds longer to make it, but getting it out early, it just makes sense. That way you don't have to forget about it or think about it later on, and you've always got these reinforcements coming through. Now, over on the other side, we did notice that Beasty's opened up with the Matsuri, the unique market, a Yatai coming out, and take a look at this. We've got villagers moving up towards the north. And I like this a lot. This makes sense because the gather rate for villagers on deer is significantly higher than the gather rate for villagers on sheep, excuse me. So to be able to do this is actually a really smart move, especially if you've got deer towards the back, because it means it's much less likely to be attacked by the enemy. But that doesn't necessarily mean it won't be attacked by the enemy. We did see that scout before running around the edge of the map. And of course, wouldn't you know it, Numidan is up to some cheeky little tricks. Of course, now opening with the Varangian, stronghold, I want to say. Yes, I got it. We got it right. The Varangian stronghold. It looks similar to a blockhouse. It acts similar to a blockhouse from Age of Empires 3, the Russians. And of course, it has access to those defensive arrow slits. Not right now, though, but effectively, it will be acting as that outpost a little bit later on in this game. It will be locking down this gold vein completely. But in the meantime, we've got some Ayyubids. It's not an easy thing for me to say. I want to say they're unique spears. We could just call them spearmen. Are they really that different from the spearmen? Not really. I think they've got maybe 5 extra health. Is that it? And they're bolstered by other Varangians. They gain 2% additional attack speed for each Varangian unit within one tile. Well, within one tile, I mean, one tile's really not much, but I think attack speed, you know, if it slowly adds up, if you've got 5 or 6 of them all together, it's an extra little bit of attack speed. Could be the difference between getting a kill or not getting a kill, and maybe that kill spirals out of control. You never know how it's going to go down, but speaking of kills, have a look at this. As the unique spears move in between the gold vein and the forge, Beasty in a little bit of trouble. I think that's almost certainly dead. I think it's 100% dead, that villager. There is no way you're escaping, and indeed, Beasty able to take out, rather Beasty losing that single villager against Numidan, and now a second. No, don't say it ain't so. Say it ain't so, not the beast from the east. Ladies and gentlemen, he's lost 2. He's lost 2 this... Oh, gosh. I'm starting to get worried. That was a third one that was thinking about it. But for the moment, Beasty's defense is solid. We'll say that, with the exception of the fact he's lost the villagers. Classic right-click on the forge there to try and hand in before you move back to the town center. Unfortunately, repairs. He cops a little bit of damage. And these villagers may have to think about perhaps migrating out to the back. We do have a gold vein towards the back, but geez, what a strong start here from Numidan. And can we just compliment him on his aggression? Because this is something that I hadn't really considered for this civilization, but it just makes so much sense. Going for a Dark Age rush as the Macedonians absolutely is the way to play this civilization. Because remember, you can put this barracks down, this stronghold down, in a forward location, and your enemy will want to siege it down. And they can't siege it down because you can just get an upgrade in that will prevent them from sieging it down. Default arrow slits or arrow slit emplacements. So yeah, it's a pretty smart move. I do like this a lot. I'm kind of curious to see which age ups we go, but I suspect I kind of know which way it's going to be anyway. I suspect it's going to be the Grand Winery. I still would really like to see Grand Winery into Professional Scout. So hopefully we get that this game. But it really depends on Numidan and how his playstyle is, because we haven't actually seen a game from him recently. It is Grand Winery. 8 villagers on the Grand Winery. Okay, there we go. He's fixed it up. 6 villagers on the Grand Winery now. Meanwhile, for Beasty, we've got the Coca Township that is coming up. Now, I will just say this. This might be a little bit... I don't think this is a hot take at all. I feel like both of these landmarks suck. That's it. That's the bottom line, dude. I look at both of these landmarks and I'm just like, meh. Neither of these makes me excited. Now, maybe that's just because we haven't really seen the Coca Township utilized yet, and maybe we just need more data. You know, once we've played lots of games, you know, we might come back to this video in 6 months' time and be like, I can't believe they didn't know how to use the Coca Township so perfectly. Because eventually it will get to that stage where we do actually know how to use it. So, you know, maybe we should just hold our tongue until there. All right, I've talked myself into it. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about how it works. So you've got the Shinobi Scout ability. Basically, you can just be like, and just spot exactly what your enemy is doing somewhere. Just gives you a nice little bit of vision. And then you've got the Shinobi Ambush ability, which gives you, I think it's 4 Shinobis. They don't do a lot of damage. They do very little damage, but their grenades debuff. So think of it like a flashbang from CSGO. It's the exact same sort of thing. So it increases the damage taken by 50% and slows the enemies by 30% for 3 seconds. So I like the idea of going for like a melee combo with this. Just simply, if you're going to play Coca Township, to me, it makes sense that you go into like spears together with horsemen, mainly because both of those units, or both of those unit lines have upgrades that increase their speed as well. So you can just kind of capitalize on that even more. The other thing to note is that, yes, technically it's 50% increased damage and it's 30% also 30% slow for 3 seconds. But remember that your Shinobi have multiple grenades and you have multiple Shinobi, and they're all doing AoE damage together and AoE debuffing together, as we see the Yadai Food Trader coming out. So they're all doing that damage together, and, or sorry, I should say that you can kind of like daisy chain them back to back. So those slows, you can keep continuously having them. The only thing is, really it comes down to positioning, right? When we think about the Shinobi Ambush, you can only do it on stealth forests or on your own building. So you'd either have to put a house forward, which would be very awkward, and your opponent may try and siege it down. But there we go. He's popped them out now. So you can see only 2 damage. Really not that impressive. He's going to run them in underneath the stronghold right now. But, I mean, if I was Numidan, I wouldn't even move my villagers, dude. They do nothing. You've got 3 grenades. I think it's 3 grenades for each of the Shinobis, and there's 4 Shinobis, so 12, and then they do 2 damage each. So even then, you're taking like 24 damage on a single villager. It's not that scary. It's not that scary. I wouldn't be too scared. But look, we do see a little bit of deviation from what we suspected. It's not going to be full melee today. We've got spears together with Yumi. Now, I will say Yumi's an interesting choice in this situation just because you're up against a Varangian Guard. Now, the Varangian Guard starts off as 2 armor, but keep in mind, as the game goes longer, the Macedonians are more likely to get armor, and as we've often seen, they do that. So that's exactly what's happening on the other side of the map. Let's check in with Numidan and see how he's doing, because we've got our first upgrade coming through, and it's melee infantry getting an upgrade. Now, keep in mind that when it comes to the Varangians, you're getting a 2-for-1 deal here. What do I mean by that? Well, you're upgrading your melee armor and your ranged armor together at the same time, but you're only doing it for 1 unit type. It's only for melee infantry. Only for spears, only for Varangian Guard, but you get both of those upgrades. So it effectively means if you want to really double down into one specific type of unit, in this case, Varangian Guards, or one unit type in the sense of like infantry, melee infantry, then this absolutely works wonders. Now, I will say that when it comes to the combos, and you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about Japanese combo, I think I'm just a big fan of like double melee combos. Because I was talking about how, you know, I love the Yari cavalry together with the spearmen. It just makes so much sense from the Sengoku Daimyo. By the same token, on the Macedonian side, going into these early Varangian Guards together with horsemen is just absolutely lovely. Just having like 4 or 5 horsemen just to make sure that these Yumi Ashigaru can't just run rampage through your base, because that's exactly what they will do. Right now, you look at this fight and you say, okay, it's going to take a long time for these Yumi Ashigaru to work through the armor of the Varangian Guard. They've got 3 ranged armor. Yumi Ashigaru with only 4 attack. They are tickling them. Every single attack is legally doing 1 damage to the Varangians. And so in this situation, Beasty is on the retreat. What Beasty wants to do, Beasty needs to get inside the enemy base, because as long as there's no horsemen out, he will have complete reign over the enemy base. So we can see here, as an example, he's on the defense and just slowly kiting away, but it's a slow death. It's one of those things where, yeah, technically you're killing the Varangians, but it's going to take a lot of time. The trouble that you're going to have is you're not doing any damage while that's happening. So what you could do, if I'm Beasty right now, I'm flipping the script. I'm running over towards the enemy base with all these archers, and I'm looking to try and do some damage over here. There's a lot of villagers that you could pick off. Now, keep in mind, Beasty's already lost 3 villagers in this game, which is quite a bit at this level. That is definitely going to be felt. A lot of vills on stone here, Beasty. Are we going for a second TC? I think you might be thinking about going for a second TC. Bit strange going for a second TC, but I'll allow it. I'll allow it. You know what he could be doing? He could be actually thinking about putting down one of his Daimyo estates. Maybe that's what he's doing. He's got a nice little spot that he can put it down right here, and then that way he can actually include all 3 of these and then potentially put 1, 2 down over here as well. And then eventually delete the forge. So that's going to be the play. And indeed, that is going to be the play. As the Daimyo estate gets put down, he's got 79 stone in the bank here. Yeah, it can always be hard to know. Okay, is it worth going into a town center, or should I just double down on my Daimyo? A Daimyo double down is a welcome addition to the game. And now, Varangian stronghold in the south. Doubling here as an outpost in a sense. If we check in with Numidan, obviously it's got this attack range, but providing a little bit of line of sight towards the south, and obviously the ability to reinforce. He's lost out on that position towards the north. I was going to say lost out on the position, not really lost out on the position towards the north, but definitely doesn't feel like he's able to control it. Now we can see Beasty moving across the map here. +1 not through just yet. Now keep in mind, he does actually have 2 upgrades that could potentially come through, and that's going to be important because at the moment, 3 armor is about to become 4 armor for these Varangian guards. And that means that even after you get +1 ranged attack for your Yumi Ashigaru, they're still going to be tickling the Varangians. So how do you get around that? Well, of course, you've got to go into your own unique upgrade, and we see Higo Yumi as a potential option for Beasty. Expensive compared to +1, but when you consider the fact that it's an extra 1 damage, it really adds up. To explain exactly how much it adds up to, well, you've got 4 armor here. That'll take you to 5, and then +6, you're doubling your damage. You just picked up a DD rune in the river. That's how good these upgrades are when you put them together. And now Beasty with +1 range attack going to be coming through. Is Numidan going Castle Age? He is going Castle Age. Interesting decision for Numidan to go Castle Age here. You know, what I would have loved from Numidan is like a single stable, a couple of scouts, professional scouts. You know me, I love professional scouts. I gotta get on the ladder. I gotta get on the ladder, dude. I'm telling you right now. I need to start theory crafting some professional scouts opening here with the Varangians, because it looks so much fun. The amount of damage that you can do with these silly Varangian guards in the enemy base, and then just like after the scouts, just a couple horsemen. You got all your food sorted. I mean, we got farms down for Numidan at the moment. System of the First Hill is going to come in as well. But it definitely feels like a civilization that would get a huge benefit from just opening with that nice early stable. Of course, you could go for a hippodrome, but hey, if you go for a hippodrome, you can't have a Grand Winery. And the Grand Winery is absolute S tier. 30% gather rate to food. Phew, chef's kiss. Not to mention the fact that it also acts as a mill, also acts as a monastery, also has the ability to train monks, and you can store relics in it. I feel like it's the meme. Who's the guy that has the wrestling company? It's that meme. I can't remember his name. I remember when I was a kid, I was into wrestling a whole bunch. And then my dad told me it wasn't real. And I didn't believe him. I'm like, no, it's real, Dad. Like, you can see clearly they're hitting each other. Anyway, we don't have to worry about that these days, because I've got my son, he's watching the UFC, and he's like, Dad, that's not real, is it? I'm just kidding. I don't show my son the UFC. Not yet. It's been a while since I've watched the UFC, actually. I used to watch that quite a fair bit. Back in the day, you guys remember GSP? GSP. That was my mum's favorite fighter. GSP. He was a beast, man. He was a beast. All right, well, we got ourselves, speaking of beasts, we got ourselves a little beast moving into the enemy base. Have a look at this. 42 Yumi Ashigaru. You know, remember earlier I was talking about that horseman possibility? Can you imagine just a couple horsemen in here right now? The effectiveness that they would potentially have would be absolutely massive. Not to mention the fact that you could just get... By the way, you can also get double armor upgrade for horsemen as well, which means that you can get 4 armor, 4 ranged armor, which not a lot of civilizations can get 4 ranged armor on units in the feudal age. But have a look at this, 6 ranged armor, 7 melee armor coming through. These hardened Naginata samurai only do 10 damage, and we've got 7 armor on the other side. So the Varangian Guard having a fun time back here. A lot of units being drawn to this defense, and slowly he looks to work down these archers. It's going to be a very, very slow battle, though. You can see he's being chased around. Now, keep in mind, with Beasty over here, the key thing for him is he doesn't actually want to be fighting these units. He just wants to be looking for villagers, and he may have potentially spotted that out. What have we got here in the north? We've got ourselves, it's just bow attacks. No mangonel emplacements just yet, though we do see one coming through soon. Where's that mangonel emplacement? Is it back towards this top side? Oh, it's here. I thought this was a bow attack. Oh, maybe it was just a villager that was garrisoned inside. Excuse me. So we do have that mangonel in placement. So Beasty over here just looking now as the splooshes come out. Beasty just looking for any villagers he can find. And we got +1 armor coming through for our Macedonian cavalry. Beasty now going to be aging up with the sake brewery. For anyone unfamiliar with the sake brewery, 5 farms that gather gold. That's essentially what it gives you. Infinite gold. Very cool. Mangonel in placement. Little bit of damage. The Radari is out. This is the unique knight available to the Macedonians. Apologies if I call the Macedonians the Varangians as well. There's a part of me that wants to call them the Varangians, but yeah, it's a feeling I've got. So we've got the 6 ranged attack now coming through for the Yumi Ashigaru. Another thing to note is that Beasty has moved into the Oda clan Daimyo estate. That's his. So he's committed now to go into. I was going to say cavalry, into ranged infantry for this game. It doesn't mean he can't make other units. He absolutely can. It just means that he's not going to be able to get the same level of bonuses that he can with this line of units. So as an example, he's already getting +5% bonus health. And as he levels up this Daimyo estate, he'll get even more health, more bonuses, and unlock more abilities. So we'll keep an eye out on that. Whether or not he looks to potentially go into early Ozutsu could be an option. We've got the Daimyo actually coming out right now as well. Meanwhile, towards the south, we've got more archers coming through. Beasty just being very annoying here, looking for any angle that he can find villager kills. He's already taken out 6 this game. Rather, I take it back. He's already lost 6 this game. Numidan has taken out 6. Beasty only taken out 2 so far, so not a huge amount. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, we don't actually have Beasty working the Toko Koji mats, which is interesting, because I feel like you probably want to work these ASAP. I don't know how fast they generate gold. I haven't actually checked that, what the gather rates are. I would imagine they're probably like slightly higher than a gold vein. Something like that. And probably like higher than a maxed out gold vein, just so that you could have that brag. Anyway, Beasty picking off a couple of villagers here on the gold vein. And now underneath the wood line doing a pretty bit of decent work here. He's still able to one-shot. This is exactly what we were talking about early on. And Numida not paying attention or not caring enough. Taking out villagers one by one. Look at the amount of damage he's able to do on these. Focusing down the spearman instead. No, decides to start a step backwards. Able to take out that villager, and 13 villager kills later, Beasty takes the Vil lead and says, hey, we finally got it. We finally got it. And I will say right now, this is exactly what you need to be doing with these Yumi Ashigaru. Absolutely makes sense. In this matchup as well, I think this is 100% the play. You want to be getting on the other side of the map. But by the same token, I feel like Numidan absolutely made a mistake by not going into Horsemen. And it feels weird, because all you need to do is like put down that one early stable and then just, that's it. So yeah, he didn't do that. We've also got the the Grand Winery here. Where's he moving the relics? Bringing the relics up. He's training the monks out of the Grand Winery, and I'm curious why he's not putting the relic inside the Grand Winery, because there's a part of me that thinks like maybe people just forget that you can't, or that it can happen. Veterancy on the Yumi Ashigaru, up to 9 damage, and oh, once again, Wololo coming in on these units. Not going to be likely. Villagers still getting picked off. He's taken out 18. This is terrible. Numidan has absolutely lost massive amounts of tempo in the last minute or two, and will lose so much tempo because of these villager losses. Think about that. For the next 20 minutes, you don't have those 18 vills, because that's the reality. You had only lost 2 up until the last minute or 2, and then in that space, you've just ignored these Yumi Ashigaru, allowed them to take over the game, and as a consequence, you're dead. You are having a tough time. Now, Beasty, think of the early game, how much of a struggle that was for Beasty, and yet still, he's going strong. He's going hard. Honestly, I would have given up with that level of aggression. Oh my lord! I tell you what, I really do like the strategy from Numidan. I feel like there's just tiny little optimizations that you could potentially make. So anyway, we'll explore that. Daimyo coming out here, going to try and pick off the monk, and should be able to find it. Radari trying their best to defend, but not going to be happening. Unfortunately, the Daimyo is able to live. And now back towards the other side of the map, we see the Yumi Ashigaru coming through towards this. Give me a second here. I got a door. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I've somebody knocked on my door, and now I've got no idea where we're up to, but that's okay, because we've got other things we can talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, have a look at these. Beautiful. Look at the model on these. These are incredible as well. This is the Takanoshima Ashigaru. That's what I'm going to go with. Yeah, Takanoshima Ashigaru. We got it. It's the crossbow replacement. You know, the first time I saw this unit, it never crossed my mind that this was just a crossbow replacement. I couldn't believe it when somebody wrote in the comments, that's a crossbow replacement. I guess I couldn't put it together in my head because he's got a gun. And that makes all the difference. You know, if you've got a gun, then you're not a crossbow replacement. You're a janissary. But, of course, we know the truth. He's not a janissary. Anyway, let's check back in on the other side of the map. I was going to say check in on the other side of the map, but, well, he's unfortunately on Beastie's side of the map. Now, how does Numidan play from this position? Because this is difficult. Why is it difficult? Because he's lost so many vills. He's lost a metric shit ton of villages. So many damn vills. And so, I feel like he's got to go for a gamble. He's got to try and find villager kills himself. He's got to go into a second town center. He's got to look for something that is not conventional. Because I feel like if you play a conventional game from here, you're just going to naturally lose over time. The resource number is just going to be worse and worse for you. But I think, has he just deployed the shields? I think I heard Beasty deploying his shields over here. Actually, we can double check and see. No, he hasn't picked up the upgrade just yet. We don't have level 2 clan coming in for him as of the moment. Now Daimyo moving forward. I heard a sound and I thought, okay, that's what that sound was, and the crossbow's firing off. Dude, they look so sick, don't they? What's the firing rate on those? I feel like they attack super fast, but it's not really. It's probably about the same speed as a normal crossbow. They've just reskinned them, but they're such a cool looking crossbow. That's the key takeaway from this. And take a look at this. Beastie on the defense looks very solid now as the samurai begin to move forward. Plenty of armor on these bad boys. Got their +2 ranged armor in. Takanoshima Ashigaru in the rear, ready to continue pushing. I'd have to look into, like, what's the difference between the Takanoshima Ashigaru and a crossbow with regard to their actual stats? Because I know that the Macedonians can actually make crossbows, but to make a crossbow, you'd have to make an archery range. And ain't nobody got time for that, not when you got Varangian strongholds that you could make. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we see relics starting to come in. The Ikko Iki, gonna do a little bit of a wallalol, not gonna be able to find it. Villager stays alive for the moment. A single at Germida. Did we get that right? At Germida. We did get that right. Beastie now with a big push coming in. How do you deal with these samurai together? I think the main thing here is that, yeah, Numidan needs to focus down these crossbows and then at the same time let the Varangians just fight it out on the front. The trouble that you're going to have is the Varangians are going to die very quickly to the Ashigaru of your opponent. We hear behind the scenes, I think that was the sound of our Matsuri. Has his Matsuri filled? It has filled. The Matsuri is now 30%. So he's going to be picking up 30% gather rate on all of these villages. Also gets a nice little health buff as well because we've got the sake brewery, which has dropped off some alcohol, some liquor, some sake over here. And now with a bit of a run around towards the top side of the base. Beastie trying to find a way through. We've got the monastery here. Interestingly, doesn't opt for the silver generation of the Grand Winery and says, no, I prefer the gold. Understandable, understandable. More upgrades coming through. It's going to be +3 ranged armor now coming through. This is increase the ranged damage of all arrows and bolts. So it's not ranged armor, it's ranged attack. So quite a bit of ranged attack that he's going up to. So I really think that there's quite a bit of power spike that occurs in the Castle Age for the Macedonians, just because you can get these extra upgrades before your opponent can, and it's a significant advantage when you think about it, especially when it comes to armor, right? Being up 4 armor versus 2 armor might not seem like much, but I tell you what, it can make an absolute difference when you're in these fights. And now what have we got coming through? We've got ruinous bindings coming in. Varangian arsenals craft more lethal arrows, causing units hit by Bogmoir to have 20% less attack speed, I think it was. Is that right? I think we got it right. I'm 90% sure that's what it was. I'm going off my memory here. Let's double check. If we click on the Bogmoir, it doesn't actually tell us. Anything that they attack, though, will have a debuff, and that will tell us, though. We've got the unwavering focus as well. Let's pay attention to that. Keep an eye out for that, because when it gets into these fights, that's definitely... In fact, both of these civilizations have got units where you just kind of want to... you want to act like Brock Lesnar. What do I mean by that? I mean, no, I don't want you to be doing those hammer fists. You just want to punch the other guy, stand still, and if they punch you, that's okay. Just punch back. Like, just constantly going for... oh, I didn't realize this, but the shinobi actually get... Well, that makes sense, right? That you get more shinobi later on in the age, and you can see there the grenades trying to be thrown. Big damage, or big throws that they're doing, now getting the slow onto these units here. You can see it's really having a bit of a tough time. 30% slow, 50% increase, or 50% slow, 30% increased damage, I think it is. So now doing a decent job of pushing into the middle. And so with the Taganashima Ashigaru, you just want to stand still because you've got that extra armor, you've got that extra range, and by the same token, for the Bogmadar, once you pop the Unwavering Focus, you've got that extra damage or extra armor reduction on against your opponent. But you can see Numidan definitely scrambling here with his defense, and this is exactly what we suspected would happen. When these villagers went down over here, the trouble that you've got is that it doesn't hit you right now. It hits you in 10 minutes, because those 10 minutes that those villagers have been dead, each one of those villagers was gathering 40 resources a minute. So that's 400 resources per villager. And if you've lost 18 villagers in that case, you've lost 7,200 resources. And those resources get turned into units by your opponent because they've got those villagers, whereas you lost them. And because of that, we start to see a real difference in army value here. So Beasty, with an army value almost double his opponent, now looking to try and finish off the game potentially with the combination, the crossbow. It's so tempting to look at these units and think that they're Janissaries. They just look like Janissaries. They smell like Janissaries. They're crossbows. They're crossbows. And now we see a couple of Radari coming out. So the main unit to counter this is just going to be horsemen. Just a big mass of horsemen here is what would work. But I feel like it might be too little too late at this stage. Macedonians really committing in this game to just stick with their unique units. Unfortunately, though, no unique horsemen means they had to make a stable and just didn't bother making one today. And now Numidan on the defense. The question is, how does he potentially defend in this position? Well, I guess we've got our answer, ladies and gentlemen. He's not. He's going to surrender, tap out, and go next. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check him out. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can watch them live over on Twitch, both Numidan and Beasty. Actually, I don't know if Numidan streams. But anyway, I'll leave a link down below if he does, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.